Hello, everyone. Welcome to the MarketingProfs virtual conference series on marketing strategy. This is Courtney Bosch Tanguay with MarketingProfs, and it is my pleasure to introduce our last presentation of the day. A few housekeeping notes before we begin. If you have any audio or visual problems during the presentation, please try to refresh the page or log out and log back in. If you are on a Wi-Fi connection or have multiple applications open, it could impact your viewing experience. The presentation slides are available for download at any time by clicking Event Resources in the lower left of the webcast window. If you would like to follow today's conference conversation on Twitter, please use the hashtag #MProfs. Please join me now in welcoming Rob Zaleski. Rob is a marketer, social media geek, and community builder. He brings with him B2B experience from MarketingProfs, Main Street Hub, a social media and reputation management startup in Austin, and even spent some time in the direct marketing world. Today, Rob is here to present how to scale humanized marketing and unplug the marketing robots. If you have questions for Rob, please post them in the chat, and we'll ask as many as we can at the end of the presentation. And with that, I'm going to hand it over. Rob, please take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Courtney. Hello, everyone. As Courtney said, I'm Rob Zaleski, better known as Rob Z to some. Thank you so much for staying late and attending this session. If you'd like to tweet any takeaways or reach out to me, you can actually tag me on Twitter at ROBZIE_, because some squatter has been just sitting on Rob Z for years. If any of you have connections at Twitter, get at me. Also, if you make sure to use that hashtag MProfs so everyone else can follow the conversation on Twitter. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on why it's important to maintain a human voice in marketing. You're here, you get it. But it is time for marketers to take a serious look at what's happening to our craft because, guys, it ain't pretty. So to kick this thing off, I want to tell you a little story about, to kind of give you an idea of some background on why I was compelled to create this webinar. So it all started innocently enough, a random comment on a post on our Facebook page. Some of you might actually be seeing these kind of comments on your pages now. I know I've seen some of them popping up on other page posts that I've commented on personally. But something about this one seemed really off. That little emoji at the end didn't really make much sense in the context of the comment. But MarketingProfs has a pretty solid international audience, and I figured, maybe something got lost in translation. And I was right. It was lost in translation because it was robot translation. And then I started seeing more of them. More odd comments and some that were almost exact repeats or close repeats to the other comments. Something was definitely not right. And then as you can see, the robots started talking in these like weird pseudo conversations to each other. It was really bizarre. And then they just started literally talking to no one at all. Yep, those sure are some great comments. Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto. Now, I've actually even seen some that try to tie their comments into the page topic, saying things like, I love everything related to marketing, or anything about small business is just the best. But sometimes those topics actually don't pull in, and it'll say something like, I love anything related to, and that's it. So it's definitely not getting any better. But then the robots just started going crazy. No, robots, bad robots. This is not engagement. This is lies. This is lying to an audience. This is lying to our brand's audiences. And I, for one, don't appreciate it. Also, this is a huge headache for us humans that manage social pages, not to mention the disappointment when you go and see all those notifications and realize it's just a bunch of garbage content. And I'm sure many of you have seen this type of automated nonsense on ye olde Twitter sphere. You are simply beyond. You matter, full stop. Your false compliments and crappy attempt at engagement are full of lies, quote dome. Robot lies. Also, that hashtag content marketing in your name, yeah, that doesn't quite compute to what we all know as content marketing. So ladies and gentlemen, basically, this is what's happening to your reputation, to my reputation. People see this stuff, and they may actually assume that it's coming from marketers, or marketers are employing these kind of robotic tactics. Honestly, I really hope none of these pages are paying for this kind of nonsense because, ouch. Either way, the robots are crapping on our reputation, and I think it's time to defeat them. But there's a problem. According to this year's research from MarketingProfs and Content Marketing Institute, 70% of marketers plan to create more content. Literally almost no marketers plan to create less content in 2017. And the average number of tactics marketers plan to use, 8. 8 different kinds of 70% more content. I mean, holy wow. By the way, if you haven't seen this report, it is chock full of interesting stuff. Make sure, some of which we'll get to in a second. You can actually see the whole thing as well as some important takeaways pointed out by Ann Hanley. If you go to mprofs.com/CM robots, as in content marketing robots. Now, although marketers plan to create more content, 60% find it challenging to create content that is engaging to our audiences. So quality is on the minds of marketers, which is good, even if some are struggling with it. And also 57% struggle with creating content consistently. So we have both a problem with quality and quantity of content. So here's our dilemma. Most of us want to create more content consistently that is engaging and interesting. But I don't know about you, but I am busy as So what can marketers do to keep up? Well, we'll start with a little alliteration because I like alliteration. It makes everything better and more memorable. Incorporate influencers and activate advocates. Now, these two strategies will allow you to maintain a human voice and presence while reaching entirely new audiences without forcing you to do all the work and spend all the time. Now, before you say, Rob, I don't even know where to begin with either of these, fear not, I got you. I'll tell you how we've done it here at MarketingProfs in the past and ways that you can too. So let's start with incorporating influencers. Now, you've likely heard a lot of buzz around influencer marketing, and there's actually some merit to it. According to research this past year from Thomson, for every dollar spent on quality influencer marketing, marketers and brands are seeing a $6.50 return. Now, before you ask, I don't know how much of that is B2B or B2C, but I'm going to operate under the assumption that it does include both. Regardless, I don't like math because numbers are hard, but that sounds like something your CMO would be pretty happy to see. Also, it's important to consider something I like to call the ROI, return on human interaction. And by properly working with influencers, you're building trusting relationships with both them and their audiences, possibly even turning them into a fan themselves and potentially creating a situation where you don't even have to reach out to them to get them to amplify your brand message because they may very well start doing it on their own. Now, I want to start with an example of how MarketingProfs partnered with Top Rank Online Marketing to reach an audience of B2B marketers we felt would be interested in knowing about our awesome, exciting, and educational event, B2B Marketing Forum. Now, for any of you that know Top Rank, they're pretty influential in the B2B marketing space, especially when it comes to amplifying their content. Top Rank knows people, and we wanted some of those people to come hang out with us in real life at Boston. So we decided to partner with Top Rank as influencers. So how do we kick it off? First off, I talked to Ashley Zeckman, who is the Director of Agency Marketing at Top Rank, and we hooked her up with some of our influential speakers to interview for blog content for the Top Rank site. And this ended up working out really well for them because they got to interview and establish a relationship with some influencers that we knew that maybe they hadn't quite established a relationship with yet. And then we got some content based around the theme of the event, which was Make Marketing Magic. Now, this partnership helped us introduce that theme to a wider audience. The posts did incredibly well, picking up an average of about 200 shares each. And it helps generate conversations around the event involving us, Top Rank, our speakers, fans, and people new to the conversation all around the hashtag MPB2B. And since things were going pretty well, we invited Ashley to attend the event with a press pass. And then while in Boston, she actually wrote 5 articles based on sessions she attended, one of which was Lee Oden, my fellow bearded marketer, who is the CEO of Top Rank. And she posted those on the Top Rank site while she was still at the event. Now, this helped create takeaway-focused content with more of a shelf life than people just simply tweeting their takeaways live during the event. And these posts actually saw even more engagement than the lead-up posts at an average of 300 shares per post. Now, what did we see out of this? Before and during the event, Top Rank was in our top 15 referrals to our B2B site, with 80% of that traffic being unique visitors. We also saw a major spike in mentions around the MPB2B hashtag every time a post went live. So monitoring that hashtag gave us a new opportunity to interact with people who we hadn't before, introducing them to both our company and our event. And one thing to always remember is that these relationships have to be reciprocal, or an influencer most likely will not work with you again. So what did Top Rank get out of this? Aside from Ashley's free pass, the content they created got a ton of traction. Some of those actually peaked higher than their average shares for content, which is great. And according to them, they saw a substantial jump in traffic during the event. So they definitely got some really good benefits out of partnering with us, and we got benefits partnering with them. So that's one way that we did it in working with the influencers, and there are ways that you can do it too. First off, there are plenty of tools out there, some free, some paid, that can help you identify influential people to work with in your industry with audiences you'd like to get to know. One thing I always recommend is using Twitter's advanced search function to find people tweeting about a topic, event, person, place. You can find that at twitter.com/search-advanced. They actually don't make that easy to find. I don't know why. It's kind of crazy. You can also use tools like BuzzSumo and FollowerWonk to allow you to find people who are influential on various topics across the web who are writing and sharing posts on different topics. You can also use a tool like Tracker, which is a paid tool. We have a partnership with them that allows you to find and organize influencers into a dashboard. You can rate them, keep in contact with them, and see who they influence as well as who influences them. So it gives you a little bit of an opportunity to really branch out to find lots of different audiences. And while a lot of these, top X people in X industry lists can sometimes be kind of a dime a dozen, they're actually a really great resource to find people that others look to as industry experts. And this gives you the opportunity to reach out to them, congratulate them, use that as kind of a conversation opener, and then keep doing a little research to see if they would be someone you would want to work with, or if they have an influence on other people that maybe you would be able to help them with their audience. So definitely pay attention to any of those top 10 or top X people in X industry lists that are relevant to you, because that's a great opportunity to start a relationship and find people to reach out to. Now, if you're not using a tool like Tracker that provides a platform to maintain and manage your influencers, I recommend creating an Excel list, like I'm going to show you here on the next slide in just a second, to manage all the information, keep notes on those who you're trying to work with, that you are working with, or that you have worked with in the past. And then most importantly, make your outreach personal and human. Have specific goals in mind for what you'd like to get out of the relationship and what you'll be able to offer in return. And always think, what's in it for me from the influencer's perspective? Because chances are you're not the only person reaching out to them. And if there's nothing in it for them, you are not going to probably likely work with them again. So a simple spreadsheet like this can help you organize and reorganize your list. I think personally Twitter is a great entry platform, so I focus mine on starting there. But you can, of course, pick your own preferred platform. I also recommend using Twitter lists to keep up on what these influencers are talking about and interact with them, watch for what kind of things they might need. You may also use like a social monitoring tool like Hootsuite or Sprout Social to create a stream of content coming from only the influencers you want to track. But that's something I really want you guys to focus on is what do they need, want, complain about, what can you solve for them or help them with? And that's why that column on the spreadsheet is absolutely critical, because one thing to remember in any of these scenarios is that is to give more than you get. And according to Brian Kramer, the author of H2H, Human, and Shareology, helping others is the single most effective form of earning trust and gaining influence. And it can be small things, too. It doesn't have to be major things. It can be some retweets here and there. It can be a comment on a blog post, a shout-out and sharing some of their content. All of these things help you establish a relationship first. And if you treat them well enough, like I said, they may actually end up becoming an advocate for your brand, which we'll get to advocates in a second. And you may not even have to personally go after them to try to make these things happen. So what are some of the takeaways from this portion? First, be organized and find influencers with audiences who could benefit from knowing you. Now notice I placed the benefit on the audience. Everyone has an audience they're trying to create value for. Keep that in mind when you're seeking out influencers. If you can help them create value for their audience, you will become vastly more valuable to them. figure out what you could potentially help them, or figure out a way that you could potentially help them be more valuable to their audience. Also, focus on the influencer's needs first and create a relationship, and that will create a relationship that lasts longer and provides more benefit. In Ashley's case, she wanted the opportunity to create great content for Top Rank's audience. She was excited to attend the event for free, and she was able to create or to increase traffic to their website. So she saw those three main benefits from partnering with us, and we also got benefit from partnering with them. Now, on to activating advocates. I do want to caveat this upcoming segment by reminding you to talk to people that you want to become advocates. You may actually find that what they want, need, or are interested in may surprisingly not be what you think they're going to be incentivized by, which we'll talk about that in a minute, but it's very important to talk to them and get to know what it is they actually want out of this kind of relationship, because you may be surprised. So how we did it is there's this smart guy in Boston by the name of Stepan Hovnanian. He's been a MarketingProfs Pro member for about 4 years. He works for Bamboo by Sprout Social, which is their advocacy brand. And though he lives in Boston, which is where MarketingProfs B2B Marketing Forum event is held, he had actually never attended the event. So we invited him to a pro members only gathering at our event in 2014, which kind of started the ball rolling in creating an advocate relationship. I actually had the opportunity to meet him in person for the first time that year, which was awesome, though we already knew each other online. Shout out to Google+. After getting a glimpse of what the event was like and getting to meet some of the really awesome attendees that we ended up getting at the event, Stepan was convinced that he needed to attend in 2015. But him buying that ticket was only the beginning of taking our relationship to the next level. So after talking to Stepan, I found out he was more intrinsically motivated than extrinsically motivated. He didn't want stuff. He wanted to get in front of an audience. So we gave him access to information and the things that he wanted, and he helped us create buzz leading up to the event. He ended up writing some blog posts pre-event, which helped people kind of prepare for it, which we gladly shared with our audience. And he followed the hashtag on Twitter and sparked more conversation around the event. And he created a Twitter list of people he found that were talking about the event in order to kind of continue fostering the connection and conversation around the event and letting people know that he created that so that they could then subscribe to that list and continue the conversation themselves. So by doing all this, he was helping us add a real human connection and conversation without much more work on my part at all, as well as extending our event and content to his audience in a much more nuanced way. So fast forward to, had a little lag there. So fast forward to after B2B Marketing Forum 2015, we created an advocacy group of people who were super pumped about the event, which we called our VIP squad. Of course, Stepan was part of that squad because he's awesome, and he was also one of the most vocal members. The VIP squad helped us shape the content of the 2016 event. They got insider and first-to-know access about keynotes and event content. And we also sent them some special goodies in the mail, which included discount codes to give out to friends or colleagues that they wanted to attend the event with them, which, by the way, totally worked. By empowering the advocates to be the ones to hook people up, we ended up getting more last-minute ticket sales thanks to those advocates and their special codes. Now, the event aside, Stepan also started increasing his presence in the MarketingProfs community in general, writing some excellent articles around his experience and his know-how, and even creating a 10-minute tutorial for our pro members called Take 10 on the topic of launching an advocacy program. And if you're interested in checking this out, which I highly recommend, by the way, it's really great, you can head to mprofs.com/Stepan and access it for $10 or free if you're a pro member. But it's a very tactical, takeaway-focused 10-minute session, totally worth your time. Okay, and just as with influencer campaigns, advocate campaigns need to be reciprocal. So I asked Stepan what he felt he received from this relationship with MarketingProfs, and here are a couple things that he had to say. Basically, him aligning himself informally with the brand because he aligned himself with the brand informally because he knew it was appreciated, it was reciprocated, and it would lead to tangible results for him professionally. And one of the biggest things that a brand can do for a potential advocate is proactively find ways to thank them in a way that's meaningful to that person. So harkening back to what I said earlier, we were able to figure out the things that Stepan wanted were not necessarily financial or physical goodies. Rather, reaching our community through our platform affords him tangible benefits he may not have been able to receive alone. And recognizing his level of enthusiasm for the brand, awarding that with insider access and co-creation opportunities further deepened our relationship with him. And to be honest, neither of those things cost us any money. Just a little time and effort and a little appreciation, and we were able to foster that relationship and get more content out there just by continuing that with him. Now, if you want some other examples of companies that treat their brand advocates very well and in ways that pay off massively, look no further than these three brands here. Buffer gives their super users exclusive first looks at new functionalities. They send out some majorly awesome swag, and they have a very transparent and customer-forward culture. As a Buffer user myself, I've actually received some really cool swag like stickers and shirt, simply a thank you card for being an active part of their community. And I've also had the opportunity to test out some of the features before they went live in their app, which as someone who's a marketing nerd like me, I totally geeked out about that opportunity. And to be able to have an effect on something that's coming out soon, I was in. I love that. Hootsuite has what they call their Hootsuite Ambassador program that really inspires their community to talk about, write about, and rave about the company and its platform, as well as provide quality content to share with the rest of the Hootsuite audience. And then Sprout Social has their All-Stars program that turns their biggest fans into an extension of the company, giving them insider information, collaborating with them on webinars and content, and allowing them to show off their expertise to the Sprout Social audience. Now, one thing I really do want to point out here is each of these brands hosts a Twitter chat, which helps them identify who some of those most vocal and informed community members are. So all that time, they're fostering conversation, furthering the community, and finding ways to see who is most active and interested and willing to share content. So that's a really smart idea on them. I know starting a Twitter chat from scratch right now is probably a little difficult, but at this point, they've amassed a really good following in those, and they can use that to their advantage. So there are some examples of how we and others are building brand advocates, and here's how you can too. So find ways to identify your advocates. Look at brand mentions on social, early product adopters, long-time customers, people that comment on your blog consistently, or maybe even try a Twitter chat and see who participates, or hop into other relevant chats to see who's talking about what topics, and then maybe reach out to them as a possible advocate for your brand if you think that your topical conversations align. You can also use something like Storify to pull the entire chat together and really analyze who is talking about what. You can also track them using a social dashboard like Hootsuite or Sprout Social. You can set up Google Alerts. Also, you can use any of the sentiment tracking tools out there like Mention, Social Mention, or Tracker. Again, that's one of the paid tools. So when figuring out people's motivations, always think SAPS: status, access, power, stuff. Shout out to Gunil Chung from Box.com for that. I actually had the opportunity to see him speak at Influitive's event, AdvoCamp, and this was absolutely one of my favorite takeaways from the event. It might not be a financial or even tangible reward that people want, but the only way you're going to find out is if you talk to them and probe a little, or just outright ask them, what kind of things get them excited. Some people may actually appreciate that kind of transparency. And as you start working on ways to reward them, always think about exclusivity and what's in it for me. Keep those top of mind. Most people love having access to things and the opportunity to know that their opinions and feedback are appreciated. So if you go into the relationship with the advocate's benefit in mind first, you're going to build a stronger relationship with them for the long term. But customers are not the only people who can be advocates. There's another group of highly passionate people you can empower and engage to spread your brand's voice far and wide. So look to your left, look to your right. Your fellow employees are a great source of human voices that can get your brand name in front of new people. Also, I apologize if you're sitting alone in the conference room. Do the left and right thing later when you leave. But employees are some of the most underutilized advocate opportunities. Edelman actually found that employees are more trusted by the public to communicate topics about the company, vastly more so than the brand itself. And an Inc. article that I read stated that having empowered employees that you can trust helps you use your own time more effectively. So not only can this help you get the brand message out there, it can help you be more of an effective marketer yourself. Now, there are a couple things I want to note here. Be sure to set guidelines that inform but don't stifle. If you make it too hard for people to share, especially employees, they won't do it. So make sure to set guidelines for them because there has to be some sort of structure to it, but don't be so closed in that you stifle their ability to even participate. And on that same note, try to make resources readily available to employees in like a shared folder, a resource center. If you have an intranet set up, you can do it there, or possibly even incorporate something like Slack or some other in-company messaging system to really maintain that level of communication with all of your staff and provide them with content that they can share. You can do pre-written tweets. You can help guide them, give them kind of a branding document on how to talk about things and what to talk about. And there are definitely ways that you can make this a structured approach without keeping people from really being able to participate in it. Now, if you take a look at the first two here, the first two graphs here, look at those teal columns. When it comes to company engagement and integrity, Edelman found that people trust employees most. I mean, look at the engagement. It's almost 50% more. That's crazy. And when it comes to discussing the company's operations, employees have as much clout as academic reporting. That's crazy. So don't be afraid to empower your employees to offer a little transparency for your company. I mean, as Edelman shows here, it can really improve the trust people have for your brand, and that's huge. So a few takeaways from this segment. Use the aforementioned means of locating those who are passionate about your brand, set up some monitoring, and keep tabs on those people. Talk to them about ways that they're motivated. Again, always think status, access, power stuff, and work out ways that you can serve them first. It may not be sending them a little trinket in the mail. It may actually just be access to your audience or access to an early version of your product. Or it may just be feeling like they're more influential within the community because you help them get there. Also, I really can't stress enough to be transparent with your advocates. They'll really appreciate it. And this was our first go with an advocate group, with the VIP squad, and we made sure to let people know that we were going to be testing things out and thank them for being part of that test. We actually set up a Slack group for all of them, which we eventually learned was not necessarily the best means of continuing the conversation with them on a regular basis. So if you're starting out with an advocacy program, make it an iterative process and include the advocates in that process. Ask for feedback, incorporate that feedback and test it, and then ask for more feedback. If someone is passionate about your brand, they're going to be happy to be able to provide feedback and to make the process better and then see that feedback being implemented. Also, give them opportunities. Make sure that you're giving at least as much as you're getting, and think exclusivity. In a relationship like this, whether it's an advocate or an influencer, balance is key to make sure that relationship is give and take. So with these two alliterative terms, you can spread your brand's voice to people you'd never be able to reach on your own, and you'll increase your relationships with industry professionals, customers, fans, and even employees without falling victim to the robots and their evil, evil ways. Now, I'd like to take some questions. Also, if you'd like to learn more about building a squad around your brand, as well as creating a brand voice that resonates with people, you can actually download a free ebook at mprofs.com/robots. And we have a fun little, a short ebook that walks you through those processes and kind of gives you a little bit of insider information. And with that, I will turn it back over to Courtney.
All right. Well, thank you, Rob, for that very informative presentation. Totally appreciate it. And I actually, as I was listening to you, it's interesting, to hear that, at the core of what you're saying is really about sort of humanizing our marketing, which feels like a no-brainer. So it's very interesting, the examples you shared of, folks out there that are still very robotic and still doing the robot thing. So, hopefully those folks are listening to your presentation and got some Good insights here. So let's jump into some questions. So you talked a lot about influencer and advocate marketing here. In your opinion, is this something that small and local businesses can do, or do you have to be this sort of big corporation? And if so, how? How can those little guys implement this as well?
Oh, I totally think that small businesses and local businesses have really distinct opportunities here. Especially with local businesses, you get to actually see people in person. And if you see someone regularly, I mean, if you see someone that comes into your store, your business, who you've actually started to know their name, that is a huge opportunity for someone to empower as an advocate. And every community has influential organizations that businesses can work with to try to help get their name out there, whether that's like setting up events with them or partnering with them on some sort of campaign. If you're a small local business and you have people that are signing up for your email list, those people are raising their hand that they're more interested than the average person walking in through the door. So reach out to them and, again, be transparent. Let them know, hey, we really want to try to set up some sort of ambassador program or advocacy program, and we really love having you on our email list. We love having you as a participatory member of our community. We'd love to work with you to get the word out about our business. Would you be interested in doing something like that with us? And it can be something that's almost like for every so many stops in, they get a punch card. I mean, that's like the most general version of it, but I mean, you can really personalize it to what your company offers and how you can most benefit people who come into your business. And one other thing that I think is still a super highly underutilized aspect is review sites. People that go to Yelp, Google+, TripAdvisor, and review your business, those people, if they're giving you 4- and 5-star reviews, again, they're raising their hand. They're already taking that first step to tell everyone else about you. And I know for sure Yelp does. I can't remember if Google+ does, and I think TripAdvisor does. But Yelp for sure gives you the opportunity to privately message someone. Take those opportunities to say, thank you so much for sharing this with everybody. We'd love to continue working with you to help spread that brand message and get more people interested. And, approach them either transparently and say, like, we're not really sure how we want to do this yet, but let's sit down and talk. Invite them in for, if you're a restaurant, invite them in for a meal and just sit down and pick their brain and talk to them and say, like, how can we work together to create this really great advocate setup where, you get something out of it, we get something out of it, and, empower those people who are already taking those first steps, and you may see huge benefits from that.
Absolutely. Those are really great points. And, I know from a personal level, you mentioned local businesses. We've got a few local businesses in my town that, do give you those punch cards and different things to really welcome your repeat business. And at the end of the day, you get rewarded with something. And as you pointed out in your presentation, with the example of Stepan and his, influence and being part of the advocate group, some folks aren't motivated by like a tangible prize in that regard, where it's free food or drink or whatever, but you can figure out what motivates them and use that to your benefit. So absolutely, that's why I think it's really important to sit down and actually talk to them, because if you try to offer them the wrong thing, you may end up not getting them to work with you. But if you can figure out what that thing is that motivates them, then that's how you're really going to get that relationship built. Yep. 100%. Absolutely. I think that's a key thing here. So let's see. Another question I have for you is, if I'm a brand, how can I get my employees active in sharing content if I'm in a highly regulated industry?
Yeah, this is always a tough one because, when it's a regulated industry, you have to be very careful. So, but the upside is, you can kind of control that messaging that's going out by being the one that provides the shareable content. So, again, be transparent with your staff. It's super important. Make sure they understand why they can't go off message or say certain things due to, the regulations that exist within your industry. And if you approach them with a more informative and educational approach, rather than just mandating that they must not say these things, I think they'll not only understand, but they'll be more apt to share the messaging with their own audiences. But, of course, always be sure to monitor that stuff. either with a social dashboard or manually keeping an eye on things. And if they misstep or seem like they're going the wrong direction, be consultative to help them figure out what a better way to do it is. You know, as marketers for industries like this, like we have a little bit more of an understanding of what goes into that, but not everyone will. So being one who consults them and helps them understand why that's important and how to approach it, I think is a much better way to get them on board and to keep you out of hot water.
Absolutely. No, that's a great point. And it's interesting, you know, the session right before yours talked about transparency and, you know, sort of, you know, having open lines of communication. So I think that, you know, that kind of applies to your topic as well. You know, really just having that open dialogue seems to be a good first step in a lot of this stuff. So definitely makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. Let's see here. So I am going to address this question here from Alicia. So she's saying, you know, asking your thoughts on automated email marketing. Personalization works, but it seems so artificial. So let's tie that into the robot thing and the kind of, you know, automation piece. You know, what are your thoughts on that? Does it pay off to be a personal, you know, to have that personalized touch, or is it okay to automate some stuff?
Well, I think, you know, especially once your list gets to a certain size, you do have to do some level of automation. But I think we're fortunate right now that there's a lot of tools available to really make those feel much more personalized. You know, we've got segmentation and personas that we can act on, and you know, there's tools out there that help you, you know, insert different things based on what you know about the customers. You know, you see this in some of the B2C worlds where, you know, if you have something in your cart and you abandon it, they'll send you an email with a discount coupon saying like, hey, you know, you abandoned this, like we'll give you 20% off if you want to finish your order. You know, and that's very personal to you, just like, you know, Amazon and God forbid, when you get all those crazy retargeting emails, it's almost too much. But I think in email, you know, we have to remember that is still a very sacred place. A lot of us do get a lot of spam email that we just don't even pay attention to. But the ones that are as personalized as possible really stand out. And there are some companies that are doing cool stuff in like personalized video. And I think that's going to be one of the big things coming up in the next couple of years, is really tying more personalized media into these other marketing efforts. But I think doing just like the hello name is basically at this point table stakes. Unless of course you don't have the name of the person, which you should try to make some efforts to do that. But I think with email, we definitely need to continue upping our game as marketers to make sure that people don't feel like they're just another name on a list, that they actually feel like you are talking to them one-to-one. And there's going to have to be automation involved in that, because it's just not really manageable, you know, on a one-to-one basis. But it should try to feel as one-to-one as possible, because that's where you're going to see the real engagement, the real sharing, the real open rates. And it's hard. You know, it's going to be time-consuming, and it's going to be something you really have to dedicate some effort to. But, you know, with the tools that are out there that allow us to pull so much information on people, I think we're going to be able to continue keeping it an automated process while still making it very personal. Yep.
No, that's a great answer, and I totally agree with you. I think there's a way to automate and yet keep the personal touch there. And as you pointed out, there's so many tools that allow us to do that based on the data we have on our you know, buyers or end users, that, you know, we can certainly meld the two together in a way that makes sense. So I think we've got time for about one more question here. So thought I'd end on, you touched on again, a little bit in your presentation about this VIP squad and, you know, even some of the other organizations that are really good at, you know, activating those advocates and some of the things that they do, like Buffer, for example, and, you know, sharing swag. So is it totally acceptable to go that route and send company-branded swag to folks that you think are influencers? And at what stage in the relationship is that okay? Like, does it seem too cheesy to right out of the gates be sending a little gift bag with all kinds of stuff? Or should you wait until, you know, you've developed a relationship with them? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I confess to being a lover of swag. I open my bag and just dump it all in. So I definitely think the swag is okay, but it should not be a first step. Most likely someone is not going to be willing to share their mailing address with you early in a relationship because that is uber personal. So you want to make sure that you've at least had a few conversations with them to kind of figure out where they are and make sure that it's a little bit more of an intuitive time to reward them for that advocacy or influence. So, if you've had a few conversations with somebody, you see that they're constantly sharing, and that could be a good segue for you to say, hey, we really appreciate you really going the distance and sharing all this stuff for us. We'd like to send you a little something to say thanks. But if it's the first time I tweet something about your brand and you say like, hi, thanks for that tweet, I'd like to send you something, it's going to be a little weird. You want to treat it just like you would in person. Now, if the first time you met somebody, you're like, hey, can I have your mailing address? I want to send you something. It's like, no, get away from me, creep. So, you want to try to make sure it's an intuitive timing to do that. But sending somebody swag really offers great opportunities. If it's something that's really cool and something that they really like, they're likely to take a photo of it and share it or wear it or use it in different arenas. So you want to make sure that it's something photo-worthy or something interesting, not just like, the cheapest thing you can find. And then they may actually be more likely to share it, use it, show it off, talk about it. And that goes again into the research, like what does somebody like? What does somebody need? If I live in Austin, Texas, if someone sends me in the middle of summer a beanie, I'm going to be like, well, thanks, but it's 97 degrees outside. But if it were September and I were talking about going to Boston in October and someone sent me a beanie and said, stay warm while you're in Boston, boom, you just blew my mind.
Right.
So that kind of stuff really makes a difference. So again, try to be as personal as you can with it because that is how you're going to really get someone on board with your brand and get them excited about you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It makes a lot of sense. And it kind of goes back to things I've heard from other presenters. I think our friends at Uberflip have said this in some other virtual events, but, kind of equating the marketing relationship to dating, right? Like you're not going to go all in and ask someone to marry you on the first date. At least I hope not. I hear there's a reality show about that. But, to your
point. Shout out to our
like
friends at Uberflip. They have great swag.
Yeah. Agreed. Totally. Definitely a big shout out to them. But, so I think you make a really valid point. You really have to kind of evaluate where you are in the relationship, and it has to make sense. You can't just, go all in right away.
Exactly.
That will be perceived as creepy and most likely a big turnoff. So, awesome. Well, I think we've come to the end of our time here. So, Rob Z., my friend, thank you so much for being here and giving this awesome presentation. Folks, I hope you enjoyed it. If you do have any other questions for Rob, he's got his contact info up here. Be sure to tweet or email him, and he'll be happy to get back to you. And do want to let everyone know that the entire event will be on demand for 90 days. So if you missed any of Rob's session or any of the others, you can pop back in and listen again. So don't worry too much about that. We do value our audience feedback, so please take a minute and fill out a short survey that will pop up momentarily on your screen. That does conclude our webinars for today. Thank you so much for attending. We'll see you back here at a future event. And thank you, Rob, for being here. Appreciate it.
Super thrilled to be here. Thanks, guys.